Hello and welcome to the big picture. As excitement builds up in anticipation of the swearing in of the new BJP-led NDA government on Monday, the discussion is getting centered around the unprecedented step of Prime Minister designate to invite the SAARC leaders for the function. This surprising decision has been received with mixed reactions both among its allies as well as from some of the countries invited. While the heads of government of Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Maldives, Nepal and Mauritius and the Speaker of Bangladesh National Assembly have confirmed their participation, word is still awaited from Pakistan. What will be the impact of this out-of-the-box move? Will it help in long-term improvement in relations between all the SAARC countries, or will it just remain a symbolic gesture? Will this move also help Narendra Modi to erase some of the doubts and apprehensions about him among some of the neighbors? We will discuss all this today with Vivek, Katju, former ambassador, Shiv Visvanathan, sociologist and professor at the O.P. Jindal Global University, Sonepat, Pinak Ranjan Chakravarty, former secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Professor P. Sahadevan, professor of South Asian Studies, JNU, and B. Muralidhar Reddy, associate editor, The Hindu. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Katju, I would like to come to you first. Is this invitation some kind of a symbolic gesture, or you think that there is a plan behind this move?
Well, I think, as you rightly said, it's unprecedented, it's remarkable, it's bold. I think it's not merely symbolic, it's also reflective of Mr. Modi's desire to take the entire region with him in this remarkable journey of development that he wishes to embark upon and that he has stated before the country. So, but of course, there is a symbolism to this. A symbolism that India is not alone in the region, that the SAARC region is there and it should be integrated. But at the same time, I think, as you rightly mentioned, there is no response from Pakistan as yet. My own impression is, and I underline the word that it's an impression, based on my own little experience of Pakistan, that left to himself, Mr. Nawaz Sharif would very much like to come. He has himself spoken of his great desire to resume the dialogue, to take the relationship forward, and this is an occasion which he would not like to miss. But the final arbiters of Pakistan's India's policy, as we all know, are the generals.
Okay.
And the question is, will the generals allow him to embark on this journey?
Okay, Mr. Katju, we will discuss Pakistan a little later. I would like to get Shiv Viswanathan, Professor Shiv Viswanathan, symbolism. Is there something more than diplomatic symbolism that you see in this gesture?
Actually, I see it as a very logical gesture. I'm surprised, yes, because I think surprise would be something different. Because to a certain extent, the acknowledgement of SAARC is within the logic of its development theory. A nation that develops has to develop along with the region. So SAARC has to be a part of his zonal developmental model. And in that sense, the South Asian imagination only enriches the Indian imagination. But there is one problem.
Right.
While we have taken the initiative, we have to make sure the reciprocities are read correctly. And I got to think that we've got to take each country differently and read the message and the conversation in terms of a new history.
Is there any country specific which you have in mind when you talk about reading the messages?
Yeah, it's not just Pakistan, it's also Sri Lanka. I would in fact read each country separately and I wouldn't treat them as problematic.
Okay, so you see
the conversation is to begin.
Right.
If new initiatives are necessary, then new perspectives are necessary.
Okay, we will have new perspectives. Pinak Ranjan Chakravarty. Each country, Shiv Viswanathan says, each country. Anyway, both of them seem to agree that it is a positive gesture, symbolic or otherwise. We will have to wait and watch. But how do you look at this?
I think it's an adroit move, apart from being logical, symbolic, and of course it is not, I mean, you cannot separate all these things into black and white categories. It's a mixture of everything that has been said, all the adjectives used by the other panelists. But I think it's very adroit, and I think it can create openings, because as you know, in many such cases of diplomacy, you can solve problems by making a gesture, an opening, and which can lead to further talks, conversations, etc. And I also like the idea of calling the SAARC heads of government, and because empirical evidence suggests, I mean, if you take globally, it suggests that regional integration is the road to peace and economic growth. And of course, peace is an imperative that adds to economic growth. But even if we cannot achieve total peace, we can still go forward on the economic integration, which will bring dividends to the millions of poor that are in South Asia. And I think Mr. Modi's objective is very clear. It is development, and I think this will add to his agenda of development positively.
Professor Sahadevan, already the noises have started coming from Tamil Nadu. The allies, his own, the BJP's allies are not too happy with Sri Lankan president being invited. How do you look at this? If Sri Lankan president has accepted the invitation, he's going to be here. So what kind of echoes will it have in Tamil Nadu?
Well, I think they're looking at the whole development from the perspective of the conflict and the way the conflict ended. But the significant part of this whole invitation is, I think it's a collective invitation sent out to all the SAARC leaders. Right. That point is slightly missing there.
Missing there, when you say there, in Tamil Nadu?
In Tamil Nadu. I think they're looking at purely from the point of view.
This is not a bilateral engagement.
It's not a bilateral engagement in that sense. But the point here is, I think it's symbolism and logic, everything together. But point here is, I think look like the invitations beyond SAARC. When you invite Mauritius, you really sort of gone beyond SAARC. That's one. If so, you have a particular interest in inviting Mauritius, no issue at all. But then if you have countries in mind that have a very serious implications for your relations, I think it could have been also a better thing to invite Chinese representative here.
Chinese?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think because it's not beyond, it's beyond the SAARC now. The other thing is, I think, all right, it is a very significant step. I think no issue at all. But I think one has to be also very clear in mind the kind of reactions perhaps really sort of create from the domestic constituents in other countries. We don't want to be really called as somebody, a big brother calling the small brothers to come for a meeting here. And if you don't reciprocate in the future, you may actually end up in actually getting blamed for that you really invite, you don't really accept invitations. That's an issue that we got to keep in mind.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes, Mr. Katju, you wanted to react?
No, I think as my own impression is, and I again underline that's an impression that invitations have gone to the SAARC countries. I'm not sure whether invitations have gone to the other countries. Perhaps the other countries like Mauritius have expressed a desire to come and participate in this in the oath-taking ceremony, and if they have, then I suppose the government has accepted it.
Okay, Murli, now how do you look at it? You have worked in two of these countries. You worked in Sri Lanka. You worked in Pakistan. I mean, what kind of reactions do you expect from these countries? Internally, especially Pakistan. Sri Lanka is a separate issue. Is separate, as Professor Visvanathan was rightly pointing out. We have to look at each of these countries and each of their reactions separately. So how do you look at this from Sri Lankan as well as Pakistani perspective?
See, experts some have called it a bold initiative. Some have said it's a very novel thing. Some have said it's positive. I would simply say it's an interesting move. The reason why I say that is narrative of BJP vis-a-vis all the big neighbors, perspective of BJP vis-a-vis all these big neighbors is quite different from the previous governments. We know the history of the rhetoric that was on throughout the poll campaign vis-a-vis Pakistan.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
And also Bangladesh.
Yes.
to some extent.
In the last one of the last interviews that Modi gave, he said, "How can talks and terror go?" So today, I think rightly the Congress has asked him a question. You are finding fault with us for engaging Pakistan. So how would you explain invitation and terror? Can they go hand in hand?
Right.
Second, you see, you look at Bangladesh. This demarcation agreement, BJP is one of the major stumbling blocks that has blocked this constitutional amendment bill.
Right.
So I don't know what is going to happen. Same with Sri Lanka. They were accusing UPA of being soft on Rajapaksa government. How are they going to deal with it? Nepal, BJP marketed Nepal for a long time as the only Hindu Rashtra.
Hindu kingdom.
Hindu kingdom.
Right.
No, Hindu. So how are they going to look at them? So you see, it's not. It's a great. It might be a symbolic gesture, but what does it mean in terms of this entire baggage?
Absolutely, that is very interesting. Shiv Visvanathan, would that my question is, would this invitation and the gesture, the goodwill gesture which all of you are referring to, would this erase the entire campaign rhetoric which Murali talks about?
No. In fact, it would bring it into prominence.
Right.
See, the question you got to ask is whether this invitation is a game of Chinese checkers or chess. I think it's still a simplified game.
Right.
It's Chinese checkers. When chess begins, I think Modi will have to play black for a while. Because I think a lot of these countries have deep problems with India.
Right.
And they have deep suspicions of us.
Right.
And I think, to a certain extent, Modi has to grow up from being a party leader to a prime minister.
Right.
So in that sense, it's a test of his politics and his imagination. You can call him a statesman once he passes this test.
Okay, that's very interesting. Mr. Katju? Mr. Katju, the campaign rhetoric, will this erase the impressions which he had created during the campaign, especially about Pakistan, the issues which he raised regarding Pakistan, the issues which he raised regarding Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, all these issues you think will just get erased now with this goodwill gesture?
No, the gesture is there, and I said to my mind, it's a very substantive gesture. At the same time, Murali has made some points which are valid, and let me try to state them in my own way.
Right.
I think an oath-taking ceremony of the Prime Minister, and especially after such an election, is first of all a national event. Second, I think it should be free of all controversies. This is a time of celebration, of jubilation that the electoral process has been successful, that it has yielded a stable, that the people have given a mandate for a stable government, and that therefore no controversy should visit it. Now, there are misgivings in people's minds, and I think Murali has articulated those misgivings. Those need to be addressed by the BJP and need to be addressed very quickly. The second point that I have in mind is this, that the BJP's media managers will have to use the word which Pinak used, very adroit, to try to ensure that if Mr. Nawaz Sharif comes, and as I said earlier, unless the generals stop him, he will come, that it does not become an Indo-Pakistan event.
Absolutely.
That the oath-taking ceremony remains an oath-taking ceremony, and that the Indo-Pakistan hype, which is all the media hype which always accompanies an Indo-Pak event and a summit event, is taken out. As far as Mr. Nawaz Sharif is concerned, he will of course not only want to come for a symbolic thing, he'll want to come and get some assurances so that the dialogue can be resumed, and he has stated that he wants it to be resumed on unconditional terms. So these are valid questions which have come to people's minds, and these questions need to be answered by the BJP.
Absolutely. Mr. Chakravarty, the question is, Mr. Katju says that this is a celebration, keep controversies aside, And then, of course, he goes on to talk about the Pakistan, the whole thing about Pakistan Prime Minister coming or not coming and things like that. How can you keep the controversies aside? Is it easy to keep the controversies aside at all?
That would be an ideal situation,
Exactly.
what I think Vivek talked about. And I would also like it to happen that way. But I'm afraid it's not going to happen that way. And I think the media hype will be generated. And I think Nawaz Sharif is going to play up the media hype. He will try to, I think, hog the limelight as well. And it won't be difficult for him to do so, given the fact that our media is so focused on India and Pakistan rather than the other countries. But I agree that one should have a sense of proportion here and not go overboard. And I think the new Prime Minister will certainly have meetings with each one of them. And there may be just a small opening given here and there. And I think we could perhaps toy with that idea of giving an opening to Mr. Nawaz Sharif, because I can foresee that through this visit, it might just strengthen his hands within his own establishment.
For that to happen, Murli, for that to happen, he has to first decide to come here. As Mr. Katju is expressing, certain amount of concern about whether he will be, if it's left to him, he would certainly come. But is it left to him? Is it going to be his decision?
No, it's not certainly going to be his decision. It's going to be the General Headquarters Rawalpindi decision, ISI decision, and my view is, I think even ISI or the military establishment shouldn't have any problem in his coming here. They would certainly want him to come here and make the point the dialogue is in pause mode. Please, now cut that pause button. Let's start. Today, there was a statement by the Foreign Office spokesperson, a very senior spokesperson. She said the same thing, that we want a full-fledged dialogue to be resumed because the dialogue is in pause mode. You see, I completely agree with Katju Sahab about media. We all go crazy the moment we hear about Pakistan and somebody coming here. I remember, you will also recall, when Zardari came in 2012 for
right.
Ajmer Sharif. It was a purely pilgrimage visit.
Right.
We all made out as if, it's a summit for resolution of Kashmir. So, you see, this is a serious problem, and it has to be addressed by us. The other point I just want to touch upon is, Katju Sahab again referred to this reciprocity.
Right.
There is this constant feeling in Pakistan that an Indian Prime Minister has not visited Pakistan on a bilateral visit for last 14 years.
Absolutely.
So
15 years.
It's rankling them.
Yes.
And I don't know how we are going to look at it. We take this forward.
Absolutely. Sahadevan, one is, of course, the Pakistan angle to it. The other is Sri Lankan angle. How does Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan government, Sri Lankan people, how will they look at this invitation? What kind of a reciprocity you think there will be between the Sri Lankan ruling party and the BJP, and the Sri Lankan government and the BJP government?
No, I think at this stage, perhaps we may not really open up a very huge negotiation process. I think it's, going to be a very symbolic attendance, get-together kind of thing. But
good photo op.
Good photo op. It's getting to know each other and a good. But the point is, when the leaders come from the neighborhood, they come with expectations.
Right.
It's a very clear expectation. Now, you refer to Sri Lanka. I think in the wake of the election victory here, I think they are quite confused. They are doing some kind of analysis and assessment, not sure how all their sort of expectations will really sort of prove right or wrong. So therefore, I think the expectation for the Sri Lankan side is, I think that they need, the Rajapaksa really first got to really engage with the Prime Minister here and make sure, and you want to really sort of make sure that there is a government in Delhi that's going to be with the regime in Sri Lanka on all the issues they're really faced with, including the Geneva process and so on and so forth. I think the moment they go back without much of a commitment or not even an indication, they might think, why did we go there in a way? Or maybe it's the beginning of a long-term sort of process that we require to engage in. So the point here is, I think at the moment, if they don't get anything on plate, black and white, at least some indication, there's a kind of...
it could turn out into some kind of a disappointment.
Possibly with the Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka is one country, the regime is so easy to get disappointed. it's maybe...
Shiv Visvanathan, so this is going to be a real challenge. You spoke about how he has to emerge from being a party leader to a prime minister. Statesman is much further away. So, these kind of expectations, as Professor Sahadevan was pointing out, from countries like Sri Lanka. We have not discussed Nepal, what Nepal expects from us. It's a completely different kind of it's a democracy there. The kind of what Murali was talking about earlier, BJP, always holding the Nepal government as the only Hindu kingdom in the world. It's a completely changed atmosphere there also now.
See, I think, let's be clear about this. This is a modest initiative with a lot to be modest about.
Right.
It's only the first move. And I think you've got to be a bit careful about treating the SAARC nations like a group of Baratis, full of expectations,
yeah,
and demands. I think take the advertisement further, Modi is offering them Pan Bahar. The rest might follow.
Mr. Vivek, Katju, I mean, these allusions which Professor Visvanathan is making about, Bharatis and Pan Bahar and expectations, would you agree with those imageries?
Well, I think Professor Visvanathan is, of course, is a very, very eminent sociologist, and we all know his felicity with the English language. I'm afraid I don't have that. But I don't think it is being perceived as a modest move. It is being perceived, as I said, as a very, very decisive and bold move from a leader who is decisive.
Mr. Katju, 1 second.
I'm afraid the Pan Bahar analogy might not hold.
Mr. Katju, sorry to intervene. If it is a serious and a bold move, if it is not a move as Professor Visvanathan thinks it is, then the expectations of the countries which have been invited, as Professor Sahadevan says, is also going to be going to be pretty high. So we have to ensure that they return with some kind of assurances, and especially the assurances for Pakistan or Sri Lanka. Yes.
Mr. Nikam, that is precisely what I was saying. It is not being perceived as such, and therefore it is a dramatic move. And Pinak and I are professional diplomats.
Absolutely.
And we tend to evaluate, if at least professional diplomats tend to evaluate diplomatic, sort of dramatic moves. How should I put it? A little diplomatically.
But still you use the word dramatic, which is not very usually used by you diplomats. Murali, politics of it, they are talking of diplomacy, but there is politics. What kind of an impact it will have internally, how would this gesture be taken internally?
No.
Has it stunned the Congress party? Because there are a lot of questions being asked to Congress party. Why didn't you take this kind of out-of-box moves?
Well, perhaps Congress did not do or could not have done because they can't get away as easily with this kind of a gesture as BJP. As we all know, some of the dramatic moves or initiatives vis-a-vis Pakistan have come during Vajpayee regime.
Right.
And there have been really some extraordinary moves which have kind of taken India-Pakistan relations forward and
then again backward.
Again backward. So, see, I'll give you an example. Manmohan Singh was very much interested in carrying forward relations with Pakistan. But the pressure on him became so high. We all recall what happened when the beheaded soldiers of India came back. There was a media campaign for about 10 days, I recall. And in a public meeting, Manmohan Singh was forced to say, we have put the dialogue process in the pause mode.
Right.
It came after a sustained campaign by BJP and the media. I blame both of them equally. So the problem for Pakistan is going to be very huge. Bangladesh, of course, has already kind of, not given that kind of hype because a speaker is coming.
Yes.
So Bangladesh doesn't have that problem. Sri Lanka also doesn't have that problem because in my view, post-2009, Sri Lanka no longer thinks it is in the Indian orbit.
Okay. Chakravarty, quickly, we are running out of time. Two things. Why Bangladesh Prime Minister is not coming and sending the speaker? One. Second, very quickly, the leverage of numbers which Modi has, which, as Murali was pointing out, the previous government, a coalition government with different interests with them. This government, without having the problem of, pleasing the allies so much, this leverage which Modi has with numbers, is that what has given him the courage to take this out-of-the-box move?
Let me first begin by saying that
we don't have too much time.
Yeah, let us not confuse the substantive with the gesture part of it. And because the substantive issues will be there and they have to be discussed and negotiated through to completion. Prime Minister Hasina, I think, is committed to a visit to Japan during those days. And I think that is why she cannot come, and she's sending the speaker, who's very high in terms of protocol on the Bangladesh side. So this is a fact, and but the other point about that this is a gesture and this is symbolic, and let us not get into the fact that this will lead to any substantive.
Substantive. Professor Sahadevan, very quickly, we can't expect. You were talking about some assurance, but if there are, we can't expect any serious outcome out of this visit. So you think that could be a problem in future?
Not necessarily. I think because until you really start talking the business, I think that you can't really, jump to a conclusion. Therefore, they may have expectations, but point is, it's a long way around. I mean,
I think, Mr. Visvanathan, Professor Visvanathan, very quick last words to both of you, to you and Katju. The leverage of numbers which Modi has, is that going to help him cross whatever problems he will face in pursuing the matter which he has started now?
See, numbers is okay as cordiality. I think the most interesting point the diplomats made is there's one SAARC nation which misbehaves more than the other, and that's the Indian media. I think Modi's great problem is going to be the jingoism and hysteria of the Indian media.
Okay.
It exceeds any SAARC nation.
Okay. Well, Mr. Katju, very quick last words to you.
It's obvious that a strong government, a stable government with the numbers has far greater elbow room to pursue diplomatic initiatives abroad.
Right. Okay.
That is what history teaches us.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to end. The comfort of the numbers is certainly there with the future Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but how this out-of-the-box move which he has made to invite SAARC leaders is something which everybody seems to have taken it in the right spirit. But we will wait and watch what will be the outcome when all these leaders come and when they go back. Thanks to all my guests, Shiv, Visvanathan, Vivek, Katju, Prof. Sahadevan, Pinak, Ranjan, Chakravarty, and Muralidhar, Reddy. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on Big Picture same time tomorrow.